As summer is underway, you know how fast it's going to zip by. And think about this. In about 5 months, we are going to elect another president of the United States. Now, I sat down recently and I just jotted down some thoughts. What would be 10 things to do if Donald Trump takes back the White House? It's an intriguing thing, and I'd like to submit this to you, but say right at the outset, my trust is not in a person. We know if the righteous are in authority, though, the people rejoice. But if the wicked rule, the people groan. And there's been a lot of groaning in our day. And it's time to take a fresh look. And this is not about, if you can say it this way, something personal, but it's about performance when I critique this past administration. So what are 10 things that need to be done? All right, let's take a look. Pretty soon, it's going to be voting, and it's going to be for the next president of the United States. Now, a lot of times pastors are shrinking back or they don't say much about this, but we have to remember we're called to be salt. And salt is not just something to make food taste better, but in the day of Jesus, it was put forth what? To hold back decay. And that is our responsibility as Christians. You know, when John Quincy Adams was president and he was out of office and was in Congress, he continued to persevere in fighting against slavery. And some young person came up to him in Congress and said, "Why do you keep fighting like this?" And he said, "Young man, you have to remember this." He said, "Duty is our responsibility." But he said this, results are God's responsibility. So we get the government that we deserve. And we have to just take a look at what's going on. And these past almost 4 years, I believe, have been, in my opinion, a disaster. It's been catastrophic. And Mr. Biden is running again. And if you think about this right now, number one, he's incapacitated. If he's reelected, you got to remember he'd have nothing to lose, so he can pull out the stops. Plus, he's declining mentally. And so he's incapacitated. He's been really incapable of carrying out his duties to begin with. But the world situation is worsening. I saw where Germany is now decriminalizing child pornography. And as far as Israel, the International Criminal Court is saying Netanyahu is a war criminal and he needs to be brought in and tried for war crimes. I mean, this is unbelievable. I saw where the Washington Post, I used to read it every day when I lived in D.C., is lost, get this, $70 million. Where do we go? What are we supposed to do in this hour? Well, it's a situation that is very grave, and we need to think about these things. And if Mr. Trump regains the White House, what would be things to do? I would say these are 10 priorities. I jotted them down. I thought the first one is that there needs to be what? Strong covering for the man, spiritually and naturally. By spiritually, I mean, I believe there should be a day of thanksgiving and honor of God for the election and what took place. And not only that, but like Lincoln would call a day of prayer. And there should be a day of prayer and fasting and spiritual covering for the president that continues after a day of prayer and fasting. But it should be there, and we cover the president because this man, people hate him. And I think we know it, just like other presidents have been in the crosshairs. Lincoln was shot, and we've had threats, and people have irrational hatred, emotion against this man. So if Mr. Trump regains the White House, we have to cover him spiritually, and he should have spiritual advisors, which he had last time, that can counsel him, but also in the natural, that there be heightened security, and we guard and we cover him with prayers. That's number one priority, giving thanks to God and prayer. Number two, I thought, would be this. That we need to end the weaponization of our criminal justice system. What we've seen with the Department of Justice, with the FBI, there has to be a cleansing and a cleaning of house. This lawfare we've seen even with Mr. Trump and all these indictments and lawsuits and everything like that, it's all to keep them off the trail from campaigning and everything. And there needs to be a real removal of individuals and appointment of men and women of integrity in these positions and a recovery of integrity. And we've got to do this. There's no more time to lose on this one. Number three priority, I would say, would be this. I think it would be important for us to bring our foreign policy under control under control, and also reestablish our position as a leader in the free world. We have seen giving of money to our nations that are our adversaries. Mr. Trump, he said if he's in office, first thing he's going to do is he'll get with Mr. Putin and they're going to end the war in Ukraine. Now, he's got a unique relationship with Putin. I don't understand it, but folks, 500,000 people have already died, been killed in this Ukrainian war. And so that would be a priority. Also, the Wall Street Journal reporter that is in the prison in Russia, I believe that's a priority. Mr. Trump, sit and get with Putin. He's gotten with, Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He's gotten with Xi of China. And Mr. Trump is not a weak leader. And he knows how to deal and how to talk Turkey and be strong. We need strong leadership, but we've got to reassert our foreign policy and get things under control. And we've got to take a clear stand, obviously, once again, regarding praying for the peace of Jerusalem and bringing really to justice these terrorists and what's going on with Israel, reassert our stand and our ally and our allegiance with the nation of Israel and a stopping of Hamas and also funding of nations like Iran. That is a priority. I'd say another thing I wrote down is that we need to, secure the borders. Man, I write commentaries, I do videos, and I've done this. Folks, we've had over 10 million people come in. And if only maybe a tithe of that are terrorists and sex traffickers and the cartels, look what's happened. 100,000 every year dying of fentanyl. And when Mr. Trump was in office, we know he got with Obrador, the president of Mexico, and overnight he got them to put their patrol and border guards there. They were right on the border. Why? Because Mr. Trump knows how to deal. And he said, if you don't do it, then we're going to classify the cartels as terrorists and we can start taking them out. Boy, overnight, Obrador said, yes, let's get going. The wall needs to be completed. And that's been a commitment of Mr. Trump. I'd say number 5. What else? I would say this. Number 5 would be we need to restore the economy. When Reagan came in office, they called it the Reagan Revolution. I watched it. And progressives and leftists and socialists, they stood against him. But it was a revolution as we saw the economy recover. We've got to deal with this. We've got a $34 trillion debt. We've got to have a balanced budget. And Mr. Trump, there's one thing you can say. This guy knows the art of the deal. He's a businessman, and he knows how to negotiate and take care of things. We want to make sure we also are bringing the jobs back home to America, and let Mr. Trump lead the way. Number 6, I would say, would be this. Reduce the bloated federal bureaucracy. You know what I mean by that? Do you know that we have 3 million people now working in the federal government? I lived in D.C. I worked 24 years. I worked at the AFL-CIO right across the street from the White House. And folks, it's just grown and got more and more bloated. When Musk took over Twitter, do you remember what he did? He cut it by 50%. It's not popular, but folks, we've got all these departments. They just get bigger and bigger and more money and spent, and it's time that we really cut back the federal bureaucracy. I think it's important to say the least. How about this one? We need to, number 7, we need to be very careful in this administration to appoint to the cabinet and to leadership positions people of integrity. Not just saying, well, DIA, diversity and, inclusion and all of this, equity. No, we want men and women of God that are going to be put into leadership positions. Mike Pompeo. How about Governor DeSantis? How about Sarah Huckabee? Marco Rubio? Senator Tim Scott? Mr. Vance from my home state of Ohio. There's so many good people. Stephen Miller, you might say, I don't even know who these people are. But folks, we can't just put people in the position to say, well, we got to get a woman, a black, a Hispanic or whatever, and this guy LGBTQ. No, we want men and women that what? They are men and women of integrity. How about Ben Carson? Bring him back. This is what we need to pray for. Then I would say this. Number 8 is this. We need to make sure that we stop the trans movement. Folks, this affirmative care, we need to be standing for transgender, affirmative care. This is mutilation of young people. And it's going to come before the Supreme Court, I tell you. But this idea that, somehow there's special rights for somebody that says, well, I'm a guy, I know I'm a man and I have an X and Y chromosome, and I don't have a period each month, and I can't have a baby, and I can't nurse and all that, but I feel I'm a woman. So, folks, people are saying these things, and what we've got to recognize is people are waking up, and it's going to come before the Supreme Court in terms of women and girls' sports and people just taking positions like this right now. You look what's going on in Europe. They're waking up. Look over there to Finland. Look at in England. They're clamping down on this. They're closing these clinics. They're saying this is manipulation and mutilation of our children, and we've got to make sure. And states are standing. I'm in Tennessee, and man, we're going to block this, and just like 20 other states are, but there's got to be leadership at the top that says no more of this kind of absurdity, and say it in a compassionate way, and we'll provide care for those. But we can't just put people and forget other people's rights and responsibilities. Then I would say, number 9, how about this? It's time to strengthen the military. You know that this is important. When Reagan came into office, he said, peace through strength. He went over there and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He put in place, do you remember, what they called the Star Wars defense system? Do you know that? We worked with Israel on that, and that's why Israel put in place their Iron Dome. The progressives blocked it and wouldn't let Reagan go ahead with it. So we said, okay, Israel, go for it. And they developed it. We provided technology. And so when all those missiles came from Iran, guess what? That Iron Dome, where did that come from? Star Wars technology, because Mr. Reagan said, peace through strength. And we've got to reassert that once again. China is looking at Taiwan. We can see Ukraine. But you know what? Mr. Trump, remember, he said, as soon as I get into office, I'm going to sit down with Putin and we're going to end that war. Okay, number 10. You say, what would be number 10? Well, with all the negativity and all the stuff that goes on, it gets so depressing and discouraging and people get cynical. You know what we have to remember? We need to cultivate in our country, number 10, I'd say, a culture of honor. We love in the State of the Union when, remember, Mr. Trump or Mr. Reagan, they would honor key people that have been an inspiration. I'm going to see a movie tomorrow. It's the debut nationwide of Dr. Ming Wang, and his movie is called Sight. And it's a young man that escaped the Cultural Revolution in China. He came to America, couldn't speak English, had $50 in his pocket, and he ended up going to MIT and Harvard and starting the Wang Vision Institute, training. It's a movie, Sight. You want to see it, but it's a great movie. But see, we want to honor people and bring this before the American public. Not people that are strange and doing bizarre things, but let's inspire on a regular basis. And I believe that the man in the White House can lead the way. Now you say, Larry, this sounds like a very ambitious budget approach and agenda. Well, it has to be, but we need a man that has leadership abilities. And I would say this in closing. There's a great book by a friend of mine who's been in my home for dinner, and this is my buddy Craig Huey, The Christian Voter, How to Vote for and not against your values to transform our culture. This is a great book, and I recommend it. And if you're a pastor, let's lead the way in this hour. Pray for our nation, engage, don't shrink back, and let's believe God for transformation and spiritually a great awakening in this day.
Hey friends, if you felt this video was helpful, make sure you like and subscribe so you get notified once new videos become available. Thanks.